I'm Alan. I work with CB2, and CB2 is the North American importer of Pro-Ject turntables. And so we're going to set this turntable up for you here. It's a very easy turntable to set up. This is a really fun product. It's a high quality product. It's easy to deal with. And so this happens to be our USB capable model, so this can actually be used to import vinyl records into a computer system for storage and playback at a later time. I'm going to show you how to do that here as well. All the parts that come out of the box that you need to make this work are right here in front of us. There's the main chassis of the turntable. There's the platter where the records will actually spin, the felt mat for the platter, the belt that will spin the platter, the main counterweight, the what we call the anti-skate weight, a small Allen key to bolt down the counterweight, and then what we call a stylus force gauge. It's just a scale. We're gonna balance this tone arm to a certain amount of down force or down pressure. That's done with this. It just takes a second. And then the power supply. The power supply here is external, or what we call in-house a wall wart. It goes right into the wall, and that's it. And of course, with this model, we get a USB cable, and all turntables come with a standard audio cable that you can plug into your receiver. The first thing I'm going to do to set this up is actually connect the cable. The reason is, on the back of the turntable, you'll see the jacks right here. There's a left, right, and a grounding pin. And sometimes, if you have trouble reaching it like me, you'll have to turn the turntable over, and you don't want to do this after you've put it all together. So the very first thing I'm going to do out of the box is kind of flip this up, and the first thing I do is connect the ground pin, because it's just easier when everything else isn't in the way. So one, and then you match red for red, white for white. So the one with the white stripe is left, red stripe is right, and that's that. So now you can hook this up to your stereo system and work it. I wanted to cover something about the output here. This particular model of turntable has a phono section or a phono preamplifier built into the turntable. What that means is, if you have a stereo with an input that is labeled phono, you actually don't want to go into that input. A phono input, the voltage is set differently to compensate for the low output of a turntable. And so if you were to plug a standard turntable into, say, your VCR input or CD or tape or Blu-ray input on a stereo, it wouldn't sound right. You'd have to go into a phono input. In this case, this particular model of turntable has that phono section built in here. So the output from this can go into any line level input on a stereo. What that means is the auxiliary input, the CD input, the VCR input, the tape or Blu-ray or whatever will accept the input, the output from this unit. In fact, if you do go into a phono section on a receiver, that will not work with this turntable, because the phono preamplification is already done here at the turntable. One additional detail about hooking this up, you'll notice there are three components here. There's a left, a right, and a grounding pin. That's what this little clip is. And you'll see there's a grounding clip at the turntable end. I think that was the first thing that I hooked up there in the beginning. You'll need to hook this up to something at the other end. When we use the phono box, we're going to hook it up to this chassis screw right here. If you don't do that, the turntable isn't grounded, and when you play it, it will hum. You'll hear a low bass hum come through the speaker system, and that means that you don't have a good ground connection. So on the back of the stereo that you hook this up to, they typically provide you a grounding pin. It'll be labeled. You can just hook right up to that grounding pin on the back of your amplifier. If you don't have one, pick any of the chassis screws that hold the case together, loosen it, and then place this grounding pin there. That should take care of it to provide a physical ground connection for the turntable. But this little guy right here is important. Next step is the platter. Now, when the platter comes out of the box, it will actually be connected to the turntable. There's a small piece of cardboard that will cushion between the platter and the main turntable. Pick this up, take the cardboard out, and simply drop this into the bearing. There we go, that's on there. And then the belt, which is probably the trickiest part. want to go around the motor. Now this is a 2-speed motor. Excuse me, it's a 1-speed motor, but there's a 33 setting and a 45. It's done by hand to change from 33 records to 45 records. But right now, I'm just going to place this around the 33 pulley, which is the smaller one. And what I'll do is allow the belt to pass through my fingers. My left hand's going to stay here like this. Make sure this is outside the spindle, not in. And just go around the table like this. Connect my hand there, and around, and around, and around, and around, and there it is. And it'll just correct itself. If you want to play a 45, you'll have to move it to that pulley. For 33, move it to this. Most turntables at this price level are a manual change like this. Here's the felt mat. Simply place the felt mat on there, cushion the record. That part's done. When the tone arm comes out of the box, it is secured in 3 ways. Number 1, it's tied down with this twist tie to the main assembly so it cannot move. Number 2, there's a plastic piece here to cushion the top piece from the bottom piece. And I'll show you how to take that out, put it on. And then the stylus gauge, which just slides off. I actually tell people to leave this when you're not playing the turntable. Just slide that back on there so if you have kids or pets that get near it, they may not damage the cartridge. So, the first step is to untie the arm. And second step, literally you lift this right off and take this piece out. Okay? Fits this way. You'll see it's got a rectangular orientation which fits into the slot. If you need to ship the turntable again, just put it back in there and back down, and then tie it up. If you have a turntable that needs to be sent in for service ever, you have to secure the arm down. Okay, you don't have to take the platter off or anything like that, but you must retie the arm to immobilize it here and put this red piece in. These 2 things need to be resecured, so don't throw these pieces away. Well, you can find these anywhere, but this actually might be a little tougher to come by. So take that out, put it back on. It's just a pivot arm. So that point will just sit down right in the middle of the tone arm. And now we can spin the tone arm freely whichever way we want to go. First step is with the arm to prepare it for playback is to balance it out. This is our combination. This is kind of a universal tool for us. It's both a cartridge alignment tool and a stylus force gauge. Those 2 things are either the stylus force gauge measures the amount of weight or downforce that the cartridge applies based on where this counterweight is, and that only pertains to 10, 15, and 20, these first 3 little positions here. All the rest of this graph you don't have to worry about. That's a cartridge alignment tool for some of our more involved products. All we're going to do is just like weighing fruit at the grocery store. What we want to do is track this cartridge at 2 grams. So we're going to take the stylus gauge off, place it here, and you'll see it's a little teeter-totter. There's that fulcrum point right in the middle. Place the stylus right on that dot, just like that. Okay, just like that. And lower this Q lever. I'm going to get a shot of me. I'm going to lower this. You'll see the arm will drop down. And you see the teeter-totter comes way over because the entire arm weighs a lot more than 2 grams. That's what the counterweight is for. The counterweight, if I put it back here, right at the end where it's the heaviest, you see the tone arm comes up. Now it weighs nothing. So somewhere between there and there, which is where it doesn't do anything, is where we want it. I want to provide enough counterweight on this side to make this weigh 2 grams, basically. At this point, with it being too heavy, I very slowly start backing this out, a little bit at a time, until this teeter-totter goes the other way. A little more. Getting close. There, I see it kind of balances out. Sometimes it'll just kind of flip. It's very hard to get it in exactly the right spot. But you can see there, it pretty much balances out. If I move it just a little bit more, see, now it's up. And I'll come back, I'll bring the weight back in here just a skosh, and it drops. That's pretty much the right spot. So I'm going to very gently bring the arm back to the Q. And with the Allen key, very gently, try not to move it, tighten this down. Now you don't have to really torque it down, just make it nice and snug so it doesn't move. There you go, that's basically it. If you're a little heavy, that's okay. You're better off to track too heavy, that's with too much downforce, than too little. People often think that if you track too heavy, if it weighs too much, the friction will actually wear out the record. It's not friction that wears out the record, it's impact. So if this doesn't weigh enough as it goes through the record, if the cartridge is bouncing around like an empty truck on a road and coming down and making impact on the vinyl, that's what's going to create scratches and things over time. So if you're a little too heavy, that's okay. That part's done.